Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grounded Roots Healing. I'm Jason. I'm an alchemist, and I'm sitting in my car waiting for my wife to finish an appointment. So I thought I would do a video. And I've been thinking about nationalities, countries, borders, and the insanity of associating with that. It seems crazy to me now. So there was a friend of mine on Facebook who posted something and asking that question, what would we be without borders? What would we be without a national identity? And I'm looking around, watching these people in this big city going about their business, not seeing any Canadian flags anywhere to speak of, except maybe on a parliamentary building or some sort of federal building. They're off doing their business. What role does being Canadian have in your everyday function? What was the point of creating these national borders in the first place? So, like I said, I'm walking. These people are walking. There's no Canadian flags stamped on their back. It's a set of ideas on how to run a society. But more importantly, it's just a set of taxation rules and policing, essentially. It's how we organize ourselves in this so that we can exist on a world stage more than a national stage. And I live in the province of Nova Scotia, so what does that mean? There's a flag for that as well. If this place wasn't called Nova Scotia, would we stop existing? Would we stop being able to function as humans? Would we descend into chaos? Of course not. It's insane. So I'm sitting next to a very old church here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is our oldest city, and it was founded by the British as a counter to the French fortresses that they had along the east coast, mainly Louisbourg, which was on the northern part of Cape Breton, which is long gone and lost to history. They've rebuilt it, but I mean, the French influence in the area is gone. And before that, it was the native Mi'kmaq. They called it Unama'ki, this entire area. But it also included much of New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island. They weren't just separate. There were no lines on the map. So, as far as I can tell, the whole point of doing this is to divide us. It's to divide us into taxation groups. It's to divide us and to pit us against each other. To create separation, where there is none, between beings of different colored skin and ways of doing things, cultures. It's a way to pit us against them. It's a way to make us afraid of the others. That's the only point of it. If they can do that, they can make us fight wars against each other. They can keep us separate, and they can keep us from uniting under one banner of humanity. This is the entire point. There's another group, a shadowy group that's been at the helm of this game that we're all stuck in. And this was one of the tactics, and it was implemented a long, long time ago. And it's been very effective. So, how karma works, at least, the parts that I understand. I'm not an expert on this by any means, but I do understand that if you can make someone else do your dirty work, and the acts that they're performing are they're doing it under the guise of a flag, but they do something that's severely, let's say, one of the 10 Commandments. But you've tricked them into doing that. You suffer or incur less karma than they do. And this group has understood this for a very, very long time. So they've set everything up. The history books. The idea of being nationalistic or national pride is all solely for that purpose. That's the whole reason. If you look at North America, for example, they drew an arbitrary line across the map between Canada and the United States. They just had a parallel, and they cut it through the trees. There's no physical border. You can't see any of this from space. The people are essentially identical. Which varies regionally, but that happens across Canada and in the United States as well. There's no one United States identity. If you go from Texas to Maine, the difference is huge. They've got a certain set of rules that they like to stick to. But so does Canada. And they're not all that different if you really look at it. The parliamentary system's slightly different. Okay, like it's just nonsense. Now, I'm not saying we should unite under one banner, but I don't see the point of having any banner in the first place, I guess is what my point is. At this point in the transition from... Okay, so as a planet, this is where we're going. The borders will disappear. I know that's hard to believe, but if everyone is in Christ consciousness, there is no need for police, militaries, anything like this. The problem is that we're going to be in a transition period because it's not as if we are in complete control of things, even though we are making tremendous ground, let's say, in pulling back control of all of this stuff. So, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time to unite and to understand and to raise the vibration of the planet high enough that we no longer need these institutions to govern ourselves. We become independent human beings who live by our own moral code, and that moral code is very strong. We're not going to hurt someone just for the sake of it. If you are not under the possession of a low vibrational entity and you've taken to healing yourself, you won't hurt anyone. You just won't. So this is it's an amazing vision that I've had, and it's what is going to happen. I know it. But this transition period is going to get a little messy. And a lot of what you're seeing, this theater on the outside, with certain people suggesting that certain countries unite, and trying to shut down different conflicts around the world, this is all part of a bigger picture. And it's all part of this transition to where we will have no borders eventually. But it's only in the early stages, and there is a humongous amount of people that are still completely lost in the obsession with a rectangular piece of fabric with a certain color on it. This flag obsession, it makes no sense. But like I said, we're in the early stages, so this has been ingrained into all of us since we were little kids. It's one of the first things you learn is the national anthem. Why do you suppose that is? It's like the first song you learned. Other than Baba Black Sheep. As soon as you go to school, immediately with the flag. And look at the school. It's a structured indoctrination system that starts with the flag. I mean, this has been transitioning lately. People have been pushing back against it and but that's at the agenda of this shadowy group. So as we become more connected, originally it served them very well to have separation. And in the 2030 plan, it's become evident that they want to unite under one controlling faction. So it's not the same as a borderless, decentralized society. It's a very centralized, one giant border society. So there's two opposing forces that are trying to do things that would look relatively similar on the outside, i.e., we would get rid of borders. But one, it requires tremendous amounts of control and police states, and the other one requires self-governance and freedom. So I choose number two. And I know that's the way that we're going here, and we are part of the group, if you're watching this video, that's implementing the second style of existence. So what does that mean for us? That means no more income tax, decentralized, no governments. You don't need governance. You don't need anyone to tell you how to live. It's not necessary. It means decentralized schooling systems and the choice back in the hands of the people who are responsible for the children and the immediately responsible for them. They get to decide how they want to educate their children and what is important for them to learn. It sounds beautiful to go from this completely, ass backwards way of doing things to the way we've always done it. If you look at, the society that was here before the Europeans decided to build all these churches and systems of control, they self-governed themselves on tribal or band level. If there was a problem person, they dealt with it however they felt needed to be dealt with on their own level of tribe or family or group. And they had laws, but each one of these was dealt with as it needed to be dealt with. They didn't need a fishing rule. They didn't need a hunting rule. They knew that nature was to be respected, and you don't take more than you need. And if you don't take more than you need, Mother Nature provides for you. They didn't need a law enforcement officer going around telling people not to overfish. Or they didn't send out trawlers with giant scoops to scoop up everything on the bottom of the ocean and turn it into fish sticks. They took what they needed when they needed, and that's it. And nature was thriving because as a people, they knew that they were part of it. They weren't separate from nature. It wasn't something to be exploited. They didn't cut down trees as much as willy-nilly. They cut down what they needed only. And then we showed up as Europeans. And the system that this shadowy group uses to this day to control us was implemented initially in Europe. So as the Europeans came, they'd already been indoctrinated into the system, and they took it with them here and proceeded to remove as many of the people that were of opposing view as possible to make control as easy as possible. I mean, it was directly stated that if they couldn't wipe them out, they were going to breed them out, i.e., it was built into the rules of becoming a status Indian, as they called it here. Only the male could keep status. If a female married outside of the native reserve population or married a European, she immediately lost status. Well, that was intentional to try to remove them completely from Canadian society, and I believe was something similar in the U.S. So it's obvious when you look at it what they were trying to do. They were trying to destroy a people that had an opposing way of doing things that worked quite well. There was nothing wrong with this place. I know it wasn't perfect. They absolutely had issues. But they the society was thriving. There was tens of millions of people here, and until we showed up, and they were in relative harmony. There were obviously skirmishes and bands and fights, but you know, the Unimagi Confederacy over here was pretty strong and pretty united, and there was a lot of game animals. There was a lot of wildlife. There was a lot of peace too. So, you know, that was done in a 3D environment. The natives were existing here in an environment that was firmly in the 3D, but they were living in a way that was in line with it and trying to get as high as possible vibrationally. Their animism and their religion dictated respect for the land foremost of all. And then we came in and destroyed it. Now, if they had had those same set of beliefs and rules and behaviors, and the planet had ascended to a 5D timeline, well, now you have Lemuria, you have Atlantis, you have peace, complete peace. Because like I've said before, you can't exist in a 5D timeline and have those 3D lower vibrational driving forces like fear and lust and anger. Those lower chakra energies, they get supplanted by the higher chakras, and then you move into a state of subjugating those lower level driving forces, let's say, and you subjugate them under a new banner, love and light. So I propose we have a new flag. It encompasses the entire planet, and it looks something like a star or the sun, a giant heart in the middle of it. How about that? That'd be a lot nicer, I think. And I don't think I have no more pride in where I come from or what society I was born into. I have pride in the people and what they've accomplished, but it's absolutely a system of control. And I think if you're watching this video and you understand what I mean, it's time to start letting go of associating with that type of thing. I need to listen to Russell Brand a little bit more, I think. So I think we'll leave it there. Like I always say, I hope this video finds you well. I love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow.